The main message of my work over the past decade or more has been a fairly basic message, and that's that every single human being is creative. But then, as with anything, one has to put statistical parameters around what that means. And what I found is that in the United States and around the world, our society is really dividing into people who are principally paid to use their creativity at work, and those who may be quite creative, but they're principally paid to use their physical labor, or they're involved in low-skill service work. In any event, there are about 40 million Americans who are privileged to be members of what I call the creative class. There are people in science and technology. There are people who are entrepreneurs who work in research and development. They're architects, they're designers, they work in arts and culture, the entertainment and media, and then the kind of classic knowledge-based professionals that great management thinkers like Peter Drucker taught us about. People in business and management and healthcare and law and education. Right now in the United States, it's about 35% of the workforce. But what's interesting is through the terrible economic crisis we've had, while rates of unemployment for manufacturing workers went over 15%, and in some cases over 20%, and for people who do low-skill service work like food preparation or personal care, that kind of work went well over 10%. The rate of unemployment amongst the creative class never went higher than 5%. And we're on track to generate another 7 million of these jobs over the course of the next decade. And one thing that's really interesting, when I first look at the creative class in the original version of the book in 2002, in the most advanced regions of the country, places like San Francisco or the Silicon Valley or Boulder, Colorado or Austin, Texas or Seattle or Boston, Raleigh, Durham, Washington, D.C., there might have been 35 or 40%. Now in some of these regions, almost 50% of the workforce, we're sitting in Manhattan today, and in New York County, which is Manhattan, it's nearly half of the workforce is already in this creative class. And we have been able to look around the world, and I added a whole new chapter on that in this book. In some countries like Singapore, or in Sweden, or in Norway, or in Denmark, the Netherlands, already more than 45 to 50% of the workforce is doing this kind of creative class work. So in my view, it's the growth force of our time, and the real challenge ahead of us is how do we get more and more people involved in creative class work, using their minds, using their creativity, because it will afford them a better salary, it'll improve productivity, and it'll hopefully begin to address the terrible inequality we face in our country.